Hi everyone, so in this video I'm going to look at the secondary signifactor. So the secondary signifactor is simply the ruler of the decade in which the prime signifactor happens to be in. So I'll draw up a simple chart. Okay, so we already know that from our previous videos that Saturn is a prime signifactor for this year. So we know that Saturn is a prime signifactor for this year in the God chart. So we find that at this very moment, on October 1st, 2022, at 12 or at noon, we find that Saturn happens to be passing through Aquarius 18 degrees 58 minutes, right? Of course, moving backwards. So it has been moving backwards. So what the secondary factor happens to be is the ruler of this decade in which Saturn happens to be in. Remember, the decades are divided into three parts of each house. So 0 degrees to 10 degrees, that's one decade. 11 degrees to 20, that's another decade. And 21 to 30 degrees, that's another decade. So now, in Aquarius, right? So the prime factor, which is Saturn, happens to be passing through Aquarius, and specifically between 11 degrees and 20 degrees, right? So 11 degrees to 20 degrees. So we find that the ruler of that house, of that decade, the ruler of that decade happens to be Mercury. So while Saturn is still passing through Aquarius 11, while it's still between 11 and 20, we find that Mercury is the secondary significactor. So the secondary significactor is the ruler of the decade in which the prime significactor happens to be in. So the prime significactor for this year being Saturn in the God chart, and it's passing through the decade of Aquarius, 11 degrees to 20 degrees, and to be very specific, it's at 18 degrees, right? Which is within our second decade of Aquarius. So Mercury is the ruler of that decade. Therefore, at this very current moment, the secondary significactor happens to be Mercury. That is for October 1st. So let me move the chart a bit. So I'll move it a bit. Okay. So it's still within, let me just take it to the beginning of this year. So let's say February 1st. So at the beginning of this year, somewhere on February 1st, we find that still our Saturn was between Aquarius 11 and Aquarius 20. So if we progress the chart, if we move the chart forward, okay. So we find by around March 21st, the prime significactor Saturn happens to have passed this decade of Aquarius between 11 and 20 and went into the third decade, which is 21 to 30. So at this very moment, we find that it had changed from Mercury being our secondary significactor to the moon, being the secondary significactor, because it's the ruler of the third decade of Aquarius. So between 21 and 30 in Aquarius, it's ruled by the moon. So this is how a secondary significactor comes by. So as the prime significactor keeps moving in each house or in each decade of each house, it gives power to a planet that rules that decade to be the secondary significactor.